Welcome to the Creative Condition podcast with me, Ben Talon, illustrator and creativity coach, founder of the Creative Condition, artist and writer. I bring 20 years of creative industry experience and a lifelong love of creativity, a fundamental pillar of human happiness, to you through ongoing personal exploration and the shared experiences of others. You'll get a nourishing mix of creative industry professionals and people far and wide using creativity in ways that can take our learning to the next level so we can maximise our unique blend. The show's been supported from day one by Illustration X, a tremendous illustration agency representing a shining global roster of illustrators and animators over at illustrationx.com. The music for the show is by Dirty Freud, who you can listen to now on all good streaming services. And for everything else, for my coaching, resources and inspiration, head to thecreativecondition.com. Hello and welcome back to the Creative Condition podcast. My name is Ben Talon. I am your host. I am the founder of the Creative Condition, a creativity coach and illustrator, author, and many things in between, which lap over. You know what it's like in this career. How are you doing? I hope you're well. I hope you're having a good week. I hope you're managing. If you've got extreme weather in your country, we're in the UK and I think we're close to breaking the temperature record for this time of year. Scary stuff for a brain like mine. I'm going to be talking about coping mechanisms for those kind of anxieties today, just a little bit, because I've got a specific tool that I'm going to take you through that has been helpful for me in this period of learning to manage my mind. So for regular listeners of the show, you'll know that I've been struggling somewhat with anxiety over the last few years, being a new parent, being under siege with the many million things we have to do to sustain this creative industry career, with the weight of the world, among other things, and now good old extreme weather thrown in. We're never too far away from it these days, are we? But as I speak to you now, I think we're looking at 32 degrees this afternoon, and we're not even into June in the UK. Now, I know some of you guys overseas will probably chuckle and think you don't know anything about heat. You're right. We're not used to it, us Brits, and this is a little scary. This is a little unprecedented for us, as we're seeing everywhere in the world. But I'm not here to give you the lowdown on the climate crisis. It's a potential, it's a chief antagonist for me in this anxiety. I feel maybe way too vulnerable, with when we get the heavy rains over a sustained period, when we get the extreme heat. I kind of go inside myself and I freak out a little bit, and I go into my stress response gets activated. Now I'm working at this. I've done a few therapy sessions this year. I've been consuming a lot of content around how the brain works and about thought patterns. I've been leaning into my interest in Buddhist philosophy, in acceptance of the present moment. All of the above helps a little bit, but I get tired. I get sluggish in the heat, and I'm not able to defend my brain in the way that I am on a more, a clement day. So I don't know if you can resonate with that. I'm sure you can. But as I'm gearing up to get back on a run of guest episodes, I'll have 4 in the bag by the end of this week. I'm speaking to a very special guest coming up, who I may consider running as my 300th episode. I've just thought of that on the spot there. It's a nice round number that we're coming up to here on the show, even though the real number, when you add up all the bonus episodes and the extra titles and the diary episodes, probably over 400 by now. I'm pretty sure we are. But anyway, big thank you to the lovely sponsors, Paradiso Institute Illustration X, founding sponsor of the show. Been here since day dot. They got the shout out at the beginning, so I thought I'd give Paradiso a little love up front there. You can check them out at paradisoinstitute.org. A little bit from their Be Crudo manifesto, so to speak, I wanted to read you, and it says, your ideas, dreams, ambition, direction, vision, perspective, to act on it is to step into the rawest and most realised version of yourself. And that's what I'm helping people to push through this podcast. I'm doing some coaching training for agency level coaching with the Paradiso Institute, and that's what they're about. They're about people having a point of view, people having a voice, people stepping into that story and, really living as the artist you were born to be. That's what I try to do through my coaching. So give me a shout if that is of interest to you. I have a big foundational pit stop session where we turn over every stone and we look at your current position, the health of your creativity. It's kind of a creativity health check where we identify frustrations, blocks, opportunities, untapped resources and personality and environment, your working environment, all of that good stuff. And I've also developed a story-based one, which can help you write your story, whether that's for a talk, for a book, or as a private exercise. I have a version of it called The Internal, where we will write your life story together. It's a distilled version of my biography process, and it just helps you to get that ultimate compass, which is story. So get in touch if any of that sounds good, ben@bentalent.com. Drop me a direct message on LinkedIn. It's probably the second best way to get me. Other than that, it can be a bit of a free-for-all in this brain of mine, keeping up with social messaging. So best way, ben@bentalent.com. Like I said, Illustration X, big defender of the industry, just like Paradiso Institute. A lot going on, a lot in common. Check them out, illustrationx.com. And of course, the brilliant Ukrainian Institute, supporting the Ukrainian creative community in this horrific time of war. I hope you enjoyed the recent guest episode with Micah Purnell and Harris talking about presence. Beautiful project there, Tethering Presence, looking at people's relationship with their devices. Really great books. One in New York, one in London. Wonderful, wonderful work. Solo episode last week, solo episode this week, and then we're back into it with some new guest episodes. But this week, I wanted to talk to you about something called the universe. That's what I call it for myself. And to rewind, I was at the inaugural Paradiso Festival in Merida, Mexico, in March 2025, and it was a stunning experience. Something of a retreat meets creativity festival meets friends in a room together. There was such an energy there, a unique energy that I've not really come across before. And it was gorgeous, founded by Hector Ayuso, formerly of Off Festival, the founder of that, and Marco Fan, a wonderful creativity coach, used to run an agency himself. And these guys founded it along with some collaborators. They founded Paradiso, and they didn't really know what it was. So the initial festival was just this unique energy, at times chaotic, didn't work for everyone, but for me, I thought it was magic. And I came away from all these incredible conversations at Paradiso with such a feeling of connection that when I landed back in the UK and found myself tired and jet-lagged in my little garden studio and back to being alone, I felt a sense of isolation, I think. I often feel isolated. There are days when I love working on my own out here, and the flexibility it gives me for the kids is wonderful. But there are days when I feel like I'm climbing the wall. Days like today when I'm feeling like my stress response is a little too activated and I've got that underlying feeling of anxiety, of nervousness. It's at times like this when I kind of wish I was in a space with some shared energy, with desks across the room or even rooms across the corridor, depending on the setup, thinking back to my previous workspaces. And it's in those moments that it's the people in my life that pull me out of my head. And so I developed this little tool, and I started by getting the names down on a sheet of paper of people in my life who energized me in some way, usually creatively. A lot of the people I met at Paradiso were on the list, but then there were friends who still enjoy this life with me today, friends sadly departed, people who will always, through their memory, give me an uplift and do something for me in a unique way. And it's a kind of thought journey. It's akin to, and I know I always talk about Phil Stutz and the wonderful film Stutz on Netflix, but he has a tool called the Grateful Flow. And the idea of that tool is to conjure the visual in your mind of a succession of things that you are grateful for, that give you a feeling of gratitude. The idea is that after 5 of these consecutively will help to drive away any of those low-hanging anxiety feelings or trepidation or self-doubt or self-loathing, whatever they might be. And the idea is that it kind of turns the feelings around. It's because thoughts create feelings, those feelings lead to actions. So if we are thinking heavy things or negative things or not much good, untethered thoughts that drag us every which way and lead us to feeling like the sky is falling, even though it's not necessarily happening in that moment, then it's quite destructive. So the Grateful Flow is a way of turning that around. Now, I found that when I wrote down all of these names on paper, to create a universe of my contemporaries, of people who share this life and this time with me, it had a beautiful effect on me. Now, in the midst of anxiety or any of those negative experiences, it's very difficult to pull yourself out of your brain feeling like the alarm must be blaring really loud because something must be terribly wrong. Now, we know that anxiety is kind of this mismatched. It's very necessary. It always will be for humans, but it's also very mismatched, and it has evolved from times when we had more threats, more illness, more predators, perhaps more famine, more war. All of those things, it evolved from that. So it tends to get us into this triggered state when we don't necessarily need to be triggered. Now, this tool of mine, I use it in the mornings. So I sit down and journal with my breakfast. And usually in the morning, I have a very busy brain. I'll wake up, there'll be a lot of thoughts that try to needle me, that just try to make me feel alarmed. And sometimes they get through, some mornings they don't. It really depends on my energy, how I've slept, like an accumulative thing. If I've been stressed the night before, I know scientifically that cortisol sits there in your belly, fires up the next morning and creates this horrible sense of, oh my God, I'm alarmed. So again, something must be off. Let's find what it is. So your brain starts scanning your environment, looking for threats and anything it can find to put into that barrel, the better, So I often sit there and I even just think of getting the kids' breakfast ready can make me feel anxious, and it's really, really horrible. It's quite upsetting at times, but it's very real, and I feel I've been living in something of a disordered state for a while now, which is why I sort of did the therapy and started to really try to get a handle on this new dad brain that was always sensitive, that was always prone to overthought, but had just suddenly been given this license to run riot. Now, this tool, the universe, I sit down and I look at all the names on it. And I'm going to read you through it and just talk you through the effect that they have on me as I speak of them right now. Because if you do that in your world and create your list, what it should do and what the reason for this tool that I've designed through the Creative Condition is just to say to you, look, you are here right now. We all look around, and I look around at like the 90s Britpop movement or the young British artists, because that was the era I grew up in. And I often would look back on those movements with envy and think, I wish I could have been a part of that. I wish I could have been there in London at that time and been a part of that exciting surge of new talent. The truth is I wasn't, and I can't, but it doesn't mean that I have to be separate from that, because I am and you are a part of a contemporary movement of creators, of inspirers, of good humans, of interesting humans. Right now, we have a movement. You're in it. When you just take a pause, close your eyes, and maybe run those people through your mind, the ones that inspire you, the ones that you want to message when you feel low, the ones you want to go for a long walk with just to get through something, or the ones you just want to relax and be in a room with and not say a single word. It's beautiful. So to pick a name at random from here, I've got my daughter on there, Martha. She's we spent some time at Bristol Upfest this weekend, which is a major street art festival running throughout all of Bristol, and it's incredible. I mean, the undertaking and the sheer amount of artworks and artists throughout the city who've created stunning murals on shop fronts, on shutters, on the sides of buildings, on disused walls and the likes. It's really, really powerful, and if you get a chance to walk on that trek, I really recommend it. So Martha's 6 years old, like my son Frank, and we share a bond of love of art. Martha is constantly drawing. They both love drawing. They're both good drawers, but Martha especially loves to draw, loves to paint. She's a very expressive child. And we both connected over our shared favourite artist from this year's Upfest, which was Vane MG. Now, Vane MG is a multidisciplinary artist from Colombia, currently based in London. Look her up. Really incredible work. And her mural and the print that we saw in the Upfest office was just stunning, and Martha and I admitted it was our favourite from the festival. Now, to share that with someone who's 6 years old and to look into her eyes and see that expression and see that curiosity and that lust for life just gives me a little kick up the arse and goes, come on, you're a shining example, you're a dad, you have to lead the way here. Don't sit there chewing your nails at the breakfast table or freaking out. Now, some days it's unavoidable. So I talk to them about emotions and I explain when I'm worrying about things, and I welcome them into that world, because if they see that it's normal to feel worried and anxious, it's hopefully going to remove some of the fear when they come to feel that way in their life, which they do, because we all do eventually, somewhere along the way, no matter how intermittent. But she kicks me up the arse, as does my son Frank, to just pull myself out and to come on, think this might be your last day. And if not, this day is kind of receding into the past anyway. It's going to be history in, less than 24 hours. So what are you doing with it? How are you going to make it work? How are you going to get some joys from it? How are you going to progress? And how are you going to just sit back and manage it? So she had that effect, and we've got the guy I've been doing therapy with on there. I'm not going to name his name for sort of confidentiality reasons, but I just have to close my eyes and put myself back in that room with him and listen to the way that he laughs and the wonderful ways he's been able to articulate these very complex feelings I've been having, which I will articulate through, a 5 to 10 minute ramble at times where I just let loose. And I know that's the point of counselling. But then he'll come back with what he's hearing and help me to put that in a framework and an idea that is less scary, and to kind of go, I remember him recently going, so can we agree that it's very rare in our protected culture that we have to experience a clear and present danger? And shouldn't that give you comfort in terms of being able to just breathe for a moment and choose a response instead of reacting? And that was profound for me. That was a real turning point, and I love that he's a part of my world. So I just have to see the name and think of him, and it's unreal. I've got numerous artists and designers. A lot of these people are creative people industry. I've got Hector Ayuso on there, who I mentioned, founder of Off Festival, now founder of Paradiso Institute. And I just have to think of Hector's infectious love of creativity and the way that he's been through such greater hardships than what I've known, but has been able to, get himself back time and time again to a place where he just is in love with the creativity and enables and supports many creators through the work he's done as the founder of Off and Paradiso. And, it's just, I look at this stuff and I look at what they're doing and go, right, what is my work in this life? Because no matter how scary these bigger ideas seem and how much they weigh on us, to know that I've got my work and I've got my purpose, and know that all of these people on this list, in this universe that I've created, that I belong to, I mean, what a cherished thing, what a blessing to be, to look at this page and see the sheer talent and warmth and humanity on it and know that I am a part of that. Sometimes is enough in its own right. That's enough to just remove the stress from my belly and make me think, you're pretty fortunate, you should cherish this. And there's a difference between someone handing you the theory of how you should feel and feeling that within. And this is more of a feeling, just going, come on, do not waste any more time freaking or fretting for things that very rarely come to fruition. I remember some quote when I was reading about the Stoic philosophers, and it was about someone who had just, basically admitted on his deathbed that he spent far too much of his life worrying about things that never came to pass. And a couple of episodes on this show, Micah Purnell, as part of his episode with Harris, told me about, the power of the maxim in his book, Tethering Presence, that he wrote, which was, the future might have other ideas. Again, when you're there and you've got this black and white terrifying vision of what the future is, it's often brought about and woven by your anxiety. So to think of that, the future might have other ideas, to know that that's not certain, and there is always something worth fighting for with our artistry and our creativity, then that's hugely empowering to me and inspiring, in fact. I mentioned Harris. I've got Harris on there, the photographer. I've got Thomas Kerper coming up. He's the co-founder of Kerper Hosk, brilliant agency coming out of Stockholm and New York. And Thomas was a tremendous guest on the show, and we had such a great conversation. Underneath him, Ryan Holiday. I've never met Ryan, but he's the founder of the Daily Stoic podcast and does so much incredible work around stoicism and responding only with what you can control, or paying attention to only what you can control. And this stuff has a great cathartic, comforting effect on a person who is very prone to massive overthinking. So who's on your list? I'd love to see it. If you were willing to share even just a few, or give me one name and tell me them, please do. If you want to do that on the socials, then please do and tag me. But if not, drop me a message or an email. Happy to hear from you. ben@bentalon.com, basically the best way. I'd love to hear about your universe and whether you even try this tool. But I do recommend it because these times are heavy. As I'm speaking to you now, I am exhausted from the heat. I woke up early. My room was just sweaty and clammy, and I've had a busy morning, but looking after the kids because it's school holidays, half term here in the UK. And I need this kind of list. I need to just make it a time for a moment to sit down and look at this list of incredible people and take my medicine, take that lovely feeling of overlap that I have in the lives of these people, and I like to think I have some sort of positive impact upon them too. I'm looking at it now, and there are people I went to college with and had some of the best years of my life, people I've met more recently and have become curious characters in my life, and whether they're in it for one chapter or whether they're in it for a few or even half the book, maybe even all the book, we just, all the story I should say, we just can't tell, we don't know. So that's a very simple tool. I would encourage you to do it. Don't just bang kind of arbitrary celebrities on there. I haven't put restrictions on who you can put on there. I think it's fine to do that once or twice if they really mean something to you and you can really get that across clearly. But ultimately, I want people who you've either encountered or in your peer group or people who inspire you. It's very powerful. I would love to hear of your experience of this and let me know if this tool has been of any use. I hope it is. This is a part of my ongoing attempt to help people with their mental well-being and ways just to turn small corners to hopefully get to somewhere that is better for you, as I'm hoping to do myself. That's about it from me this week, guys. Shorter one. Guest episode coming up very soon. We've got Tina Rapp, a creative coach based in Germany, working with people on a mind-body level. It's really interesting work. Jason Ortiz also, he's a confidence coach. We're going to be talking about that and confidence, what it means, how you can embody that. It's a really strong episode. Thomas Kerper, as I mentioned, also coming up very soon. And more where that comes from. Special guest to be recorded this Friday, which I will announce in due course. But for now, check out the supporters of this show, illustrationx.com, for your beautiful illustration and animation worldwide. Paradiso Institute to join their work. They're helping brave leaders and bold leaders support themselves and build that even more to inspire the next generation in our industry in which we feel there's too much sameness. So we're looking to disrupt that. And last but finally not least, the Ukrainian Institute, supporting the embattled Ukrainian creative community in this horrific time of war. ui.org.ua to go and support those guys. Share some work, commission them if you're in a position to do so. That's it from me. Have a beautiful week and I'll see you next time. Nice one. Cheers, guys.